an unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Having it to see and listen to remember and accept, I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's words. Good morning again. It's great to see you all. Excuse me. This morning, I want to talk about the practice of personal reflection. It's a way of encountering our lives that supports growing richness and depth of our practice. Can you all hear me okay? Just want to make sure. Yeah, great. This is not an aspect of practice that's but it's not at odds with it either. Taking time to taste the nature of our experience, taking the time to listen deeply and come to know what enlivens and encourages and supports us, what clarifies where our delusion is most vivid and most impactful, and what enhances our ability to engage deeply with the practice in our everyday lives. This kind of reflection helps us orient towards our practice. It unseats the delusions that so often push us from one thing to the next until we find we've lost our way, often because we thought we knew where we were going, right? It's kind of like, I'm no navigator in the wilderness, but so I hear if you pay attention to the trees and maybe leave a little stone or a mark, if you run into that again, you know you're going in circles. So often we lose our way because we think we know where we're going. This practice allows us to put our thoughts and ideas in their proper place and see more clearly what's important. It also grows humility and courage. And these are two really vital aspects of our practice lives. And this is particularly important when we find ourselves fatigued, discouraged, burnt out, or just plain lost. We are humans, and we exist in the human realm. And that realm requires that we meet basic needs and have the capacity and wherewithal to take an honest look at ourselves and our lives. When we stop and pay attention, we have the chance to see the state of our minds, our hearts, our bodies, the state of our thinking, our emotional, and our spiritual lives. When we do that, we then have the opportunity to address what needs addressing. We have the opportunity to set priorities and make needed changes. What takes shape in this process is both universal and unique to each of us. Universal in the sense that each of us has everything required to realize our true nature and manifest the practice fully. Every single one of us, no matter what you think. So there is this universal. And unique in the sense that each of us lives in different circumstances. Each of us has different gifts and talents, histories, and shaping experiences. So the recipe for what works for you and the shape of what grows out of aligning yourself with it will also be universal and particular. And this is what Shunryu Suzuki Roshi called your inmost request, responding to your inmost request. And our lives grow in aliveness, stability, and fruitfulness when we listen and follow this. So I thought today I'd suggest a couple of ways to do this reflection. In the first, you stop and look at your life, what you're doing, how you're living, and settle down and listen for what is essential to you. This is personal, relational, and responsibilities do you have to yourself and others in your life? What says to you, this is non-negotiable? A child, a parent, perhaps, a spouse, the ability to sustain yourself financially, the need to make art. Who knows? Could be many things. To ask this question, what is this? This unique life. When we can clarify that, at least to some degree, priorities become clear. We can shed what may be very enticing, but is not central. There are so many things to do in this world. So many things. And it takes a certain kind of discipline to say, yes, I could, but this is what's most central to me. This is the thing that I want to give my life to. Setting aside time for personal reflection helps with this. Journal, talk with a trusted friend or teacher. Ask for the spirit of Kannon, of compassion, and Manjushri, wisdom, to guide you. We can think of these bodhisattvas as other than us, but we also can come to know that they are also not. The spirit of compassion and wisdom is what you're made of. In this way, you can come to order your life. You can consider how you can live in a balanced way. Then you can undertake practices that support such a life. You commit to them in a caring way that is not wimpy. You undertake them. I like this word, undertake, even though I was looking up the etymology of it, and it kept wanting to take me to undertaker, which I thought wasn't really the point. But to me, undertake has a kind of grittiness to it. It says something about the underpinning of our life. Also that we set ourselves to do something specific. We clothe ourselves in this. We pull with it. We engage with it. So in the context of looking at the shape of your life, the one you've got, not somebody else's, not some ideal life, but the one you've got, this body and mind and heart, you discover a path, a way, and the practices that support it. I highly recommend Zazen. as one of these practices. But there is also chanting, study, copying sutras, bowing, walking meditation, hiking, strolling on the beach, writing, poetry, painting, making music, dancing, cooking, friendship, shared time together, especially Sangha life. Those are the bonds that will sustain you in the Dharma. So crack open idea of what practices sustain you and make them a practice. This effort, this undertaking supports a life-giving way of life, not one that's constricted. This effort should not be constricting. It should be done creatively and with a caring mind. One way I was reading recently that I really liked is, such practices are invitations to live in a way that expresses most closely what you most care about. You are invited over and over to live what is most true in the life that you have. So maybe you get a box of invitation cards or something, I don't know. Think about it. In this way, you take time to discover what is most important to you. You consider practices that support your life. You invite you deeper and deeper into your life, and then you accept the invitation. You structure your days with priorities and practices, and you allow those practices to infuse and order your days. So there's a kind of dialogue. I suggest you do this and see what happens. Don't wait. I had a student many years ago, Sue and Randy, remember her? Her name was Sage, and she lived in north central Washington. She served the native peoples there as a social worker and died too young from cancer, in part because she received the same poor medical care as the people she was serving. Sue and I went up there, and I gave her the precepts out in a beautiful desert area. She and I spoke regularly over the phone in the last time of her life. She was a testy woman and a very direct one. And I will hear her voice always. Don't wait, Jaku. Don't wait. So I pass her words on to you and to me and say, don't wait. Don't wait to follow this path. Another way of doing this kind of personal reflection is based on a practice used by the Jesuits from St. Ignatius of Loyola, their founder. I'm going to freely adapt this way. So I hope if my Jesuit friends see this talk, and they will forgive me, as I hope St. Ignatius will forgive me. So this is a structured way of looking at your life into focus and seeing what you're doing to support or not your practice, as well as where your inner and outer actions need some attention. This is not meant as a path of self-improvement centered on perfecting the self. It's a way of planting your inmost request squarely in the middle of your life and paying particular attention to the movement of your heart and mind and your actions. It is meant to be practiced daily as a way of keeping each day in focus. You know, the verse on the Han, the wooden board that we hit to call us to the Zendo, we don't have one here, but in many Zendos and in all monasteries, they have one. And on the board is written, "Great is the..." So this particular practice keeps us focused on the day in front of us, the day behind the day in front of us. It's a way of bringing our future out of vagueness and into focus. So there are 5 steps in the process. In my interpretation, the first step is to invite wisdom into your encounter with your life. Stop, focus, and remember that wisdom and compassion are present always. The Heart Sutra tells us, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, the spirit of compassion, when coursing deeply in prajna paramita, the practice of the perfection of wisdom, clearly saw that all 5 skandhas are empty of own being. With this in mind, we can look at ourselves and our lives with clarity and care. We know we are not a fixed entity, and we know we are not different from Avalokiteshvara in the way of realization. We can trust that. We can entrust ourselves to that. As Dogen Senji says, we can throw ourselves into the house of the Buddha. Our small selves, our narrow views, we toss them into the enlightened mind. That is our true nature. So that we might see clearly and transform our lives in the light of the Dharma. As a concrete practice, we do this however makes sense for us. Recite this first line from the Heart Sutra or another west to see clearly. I want to emphasize that when we talk of wisdom and light in this way, I'm not defining them. Perfect wisdom and the luminosity of awakening are not limited by our ideas or any definitions we might have. That doesn't mean we can't invite the light of the Dharma into our lives. Koen Ejo, who follows Dogen Senji in our lineage, wrote in the Komyozo Zamai, this is the practice of the treasury of luminosity. He wrote, luminosity has no location. When Buddhas appear in this universe, it does not arise with them. When Buddhas cease, luminosity does not cease. When you are born, luminosity is not born. When you die, luminosity does not die. Buddhas do not have more of it. Sentient beings do not have less. If you are deluded, it is not. If you are enlightened, it is not. It has no rank, no form, and no name. This is the body of totality of all things. You cannot grasp it. You cannot throw it away. It is unattainable. Listen to this carefully. Although it is unattainable, it penetrates the whole body. From the highest heaven to the deepest hell, all realms are illuminated perfectly. This is wondrous and inconceivably subtle luminosity. Okay, I want to read that last line again. It penetrates the whole body. From the highest heaven to the deepest hell, all realms are illuminated perfectly. This is wondrous and inconceivable subtle luminosity. So, whether you think you're in the highest heaven or the deepest hell, whatever is happening in your life, this luminosity is present. It is available. It is who you are. So when we ask for clarity, when we ask for light, we are asking for something that's already there and that is beyond our conception. In the fascicle Komyo, Dogen Zenji makes clear that this radiant light is the whole of humanity, the whole of reality, and is present in each of us. He says, of course, the great teacher Yun Men ascended the teaching seat and said to the assembly, each and every person, without exception, has the radiant light. When looked for, it cannot be seen and is obscured in total darkness. What is the radiant light existing in all people? This is a powerful question. In this moment, what is the radiant light in all being? We can ask what is the radiant light existing in as all being, and we can get very practical in our lives. We may feel very far from luminosity. That is part of our experience, and it has nothing to do with whether luminosity is present or not in our lives in a way that invites our realization of luminosity directly, concretely, and whether we know it or not. It's important that we not get lost in the lofty language and understand that Soto Zen is made real in our lives day by day. That inviting ourselves to see clearly by the light of the Dharma does not limit luminosity to what we think it is. So, back to the model. In the next step, we look at our lives and our days with gratitude. We and all beings arise from all of reality. Every breath we take is given. Life is given. Taking this stance shifts our view. We can see things we may not have seen before when we look with the eyes of gratitude. We may be open in ways that we were not when we had a constricted view. This is not rose-colored glasses. This is central to seeing our lives clearly. Gratitude lives at the heart of Soto Zen practice. Everything is Buddha nature, and each aspect of reality has its own life, its own being to give. When we live in this way, curious and engaged, grateful, we are freed from constriction and the bondage of delusion. Notice, I did not say we are free from delusion. Our practice, but we are not bound by it. This is the difference. This step of gratitude is important. You may spend time, a lot of time, just resting here. Quite a lot of time. Or even just stop here. It's well worth it. By staying here, we make gratitude concrete and real, not vague and wishful. So, number one, we invite ourselves to see clearly in the light of the Dharma. Number two, we return to gratitude. The third step is to look at your day. What happened? What did you feel, think, say, do, awaken to? When were you asleep at the wheel? When were you hyper alert in a way that's driven by the small self? When were you engaged in caring, spiteful, or anxious? Look at your life and look deeper. What do you want? Are you even aware of it? Our practice lives take place here, the mud and muck and the clear flowing water of our days. What do you see when you look? How are you looking? With kindness and vigor, or with corrosive criticalness? The latter is poison and derails the process. And if you see it, take it as an opportunity to shift your view to your practice base, which is the wisdom and compassion of the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, ancestors, teachers, and friends. You can spend time with one aspect of your day, or if you see a thread, you can follow that. The point is to come closer to the concrete details of your life and weave together your intention and your lived experience so that your day-to-day practice is saturated with remembering oneself back to the practice and the teachings. So, step number 3, take a look at your day. What happened? Feelings, thoughts, actions. Pay attention to how you look. The next step is facing any ways you have fallen down in your life. In this, we practice taking responsibility in a simple, straightforward way. Feeling how we strayed from our intention, recommitting ourselves, and then making a fresh start. Straight ahead, letting go of corrosive attitudes. I'd also add, we take time to rejoice in the times we're able to enact our intention. For example, if we did slow down enough to pay attention to our lives. Maybe we were patient when we felt cranky or frustrated. Maybe we were kind or courageous. This is as important as seeing our shortcomings, I think. And central to both is remembering our intention and trusting that we are fully capable of following Buddha's way. We're just not perfect. So we invite clarity, we return to gratitude, we examine our days, we face up to our shortcomings, we cherish the ways in which we came alive with practice. And the last step is looking at the day ahead and asking, what will I do today? Gently and thoroughly setting your intention in the how it will be made real in the day ahead. Doing this makes the future less vague and more concrete. How we want to live comes into vivid focus. So again, we might see one thing that jumps out at us, or we might want to follow one thread throughout the day, but keep it simple, concrete. Vagueness leads to laxity and procrastination. So look at the day ahead. What are your priorities? How do you discover them? How do you enact them? How do you order your time? How do you order your energy? How do you remember to invite the clarity of the Dharma light and the gratitude that comes from remembering who we are? The learning that comes from examining what has been and the intention that we want to carry forward. Keep it simple, make it concrete, but also stay open. Opportunities may present themselves that you cannot even imagine. things always come up, don't they? I had a plan for yesterday afternoon, and then I got an email from the Satoshi saying, we need this application. And you have to tell us what you did for the last couple of years. So there I am, going through my date book, and notice I'm doing this, meaning it's still paper, right? And figuring out, okay, so how to do that? This is so concrete. And it doesn't matter what your days are like, you can do this. Suzuki Roshi said, what is our practice and what is our everyday life? This we should clearly know. We should know how to extend our Zazen practice in our everyday life. Things that exist are imperfect. Nothing we see or hear is perfect. But right there, in that imperfection, is perfect reality. So according to Dogen Zenji, our practice should be established in delusion. We are all deluded people. We should establish our true practice in our delusion. There is no other place for you to establish your practice. Okay, so I'm going to read that again, okay? What is our practice and what is our everyday life? This we should clearly know. We should know how to extend our Zazen practice in our everyday life. Things that exist are imperfect. Nothing we see or hear is perfect, but right there in that imperfection is perfect reality. So according to Dogen Zenji, our practice should be established in delusion. We are all deluded people, and we should establish our true practice in our delusion. There is no other place for you to establish your practice. So what I'm recommending today is ways in which we can negotiate this. Practical ways for us to look at our lives, face our delusions, enact our realization and our gratitude. This is not just a generous view, it's an accurate one. Our practice only takes shape in the lives that we live. There is no other time like the present. In fact, nothing exists but the present. And by the present, I mean, yes, we can truncate everything down, this moment, this moment, this moment. That's great. But we also have to look at the days of our lives. Wasn't that a soap opera? We have to look at the soap opera of our lives. We have to look at the delusion in our lives. We have to look at the clarity in our lives. We have to invite these concrete practices. And then we have to send ourselves an invitation and then open the envelope and say yes. Accept the invitation to actually examine ways. And these are ways to do it. So we engage with our daily lives in a thoughtful and clear way. We remember our intention and open our practice lives in concrete ways to every aspect of our day-to-day existence. We accept the invitation. So I want to encourage you to take up a way of personal reflection and understand it as an aspect of our Soto Zen practice.